Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Hulk Versus. Now, Hulk Versus isn't really technically a movie, it's really more of a DVD. During the time when Marvel and Lionsgate would actually put out direct-to-DVD animated movies of some of their characters, which happened before the MCU kicked off and lasted until about 2011, surprisingly enough. I never really got as into them as I have with the DC animated films, but there was one in particular, this one, because I knew it would have a bunch of Hulk fighting in it, and because it's called Hulk Versus, it's actually two different shorter films, one Hulk versus Thor and the other Hulk versus Wolverine. Whichever order you want to watch them in is up to you, and the disc menu kind of gives you that option. You pick one or the other and you watch them individually. Also, it came in this awesome thing. I was excited for this before it came out because I thought Hulk versus Thor, just a movie of Hulk fighting, that's been my dream of my entire life, and I don't really care that much about the character of the Hulk, but I like people punching things, so I thought, hey, this will be awesome. And like, look at this, that's Hulk versus Thor, and then it's Hulk versus Wolverine. Thor, Wolverine, and the character, if you notice, the character of Hulk changes. See, his hair changes, like professional party, grunge in the early 90s, grunge in the later 90s, Soundgarden super unknown, Soundgarden down on the upside. Oh wait, he cut his hair earlier than that, didn't he? I mean, you can watch like the disc here, you get both, which is boring, and then he just has the party hair in this. I don't know what they're trying to say in that, but it's like, look at that's so cool. It's like, this is mainly why I have kept this. My wife was like, do we really need to keep this? I'm like, yes. I don't understand how you could not. Like, look how gorgeous this is. But it's actually kind of cool, the idea that you can pick one or the other. It's your choice. You know, on the back, Wolverine's listed first, but in most circles, it seems like the Thor one is the way most people watch it first. It's really up to you. You can watch it any order you want, which is actually really cool. You know, Marvel and DC were making these direct-to-DVD animated things, really having any fun with the medium. They're just like, here's a movie, and that's cool. And those are good movies, and that's fine. But in terms of this is an idea that would only really work on DVD. So much so when this is on streaming or on Amazon Prime or iTunes, they just make it as one movie, and they're just literally back to back with credits. It's like someone put them and just went, bop, here's one, and then bop, here's the other, not combining the credits or something, which would probably make a lot more sense. But I guess you can't, because they're not made that way, but it's also like, why not just have them be separate things, which make more sense. But I've always really loved this one, and I think the structure of each are a lot of fun. I think most people would probably want to see the Hulk vs. Wolverine one more, and personally that's probably what I was more interested in when I bought it before I watched them, but the Hulk vs. Thor one is probably the best made, having this idea of Hulk who has been taken over by Loki through a spell from another character whose name I forget, and separate Hulk and Bruce Banner, and then the Hulk who is controlled by Loki will go in and just destroy Asgard, and so he can take over Asgard while Odin is during his Odin sleep, and Thor has to defeat him. It has a really great pace to it, as most of it is Hulk smashing stuff, which is awesome. Thor and Loki fighting, and then going to hell at one point, doing this thing and that thing. It really all plays off of the centerpiece of it, which is Hulk destroying things, which is awesome, and fighting people, and doing cool stuff that Hulk does. And I think as long as you have that in the Hulk versus thing, you have this like great energy to it, because it never really stops. It's always just moving, and if you get sick of like their boring Asgard plot, because I mean, wouldn't you? I mean, usually it is boring. I haven't seen Thor Ragnarok when I shot this, in case that's more interesting and you want to get mad. In Hulk Versus, it really moves at a great pace because it has the action as its centerpiece. A lot of the great things about both these shorts is it understands what it is, which is primarily fan service, and really like the dumbest shitty fan service ever, which is just like watching Hulk fight crap, and it gets like, that's why you're there. And I think this one gets it the best. It understands like, hey, you do actually want a pretty good story, some Walt Simonson influence in there, some great Jack Kirby kind of Thor stuff as well, but also you want to see Hulk destroy stuff and have him and Thor fight, which has a really great battle within it. There's certain things that connect these two, particularly the writers. Christopher Yaus wrote on both. He seems to be the only person. Craig Kyle are the only two people who wrote on both. Frank Parr, who directed Hulk vs. Wolverine, actually helped write on Hulk vs. Thor, but not Hulk vs. Wolverine. That's weird. And they did have separate directors. Sam Liu directed Hulk vs. Thor, and Frank Power, his name I'm butchering, I'm sure, directed Hulk vs. Wolverine. And there's a different feel to each. They don't literally feel like the same style. This probably has more differentiation between the two shorts than, you know, most Marvel movies do in how they're shot. There is actually very much a difference, and they do have the same voice of Bruce Banner and Hulk and things like that, but there's no real other connective tissue. But I think Hulk vs. Thor really gets like why I wanted to see this, like the dumb cheap beer fun of base basically why this exists, is that it exists for a real fan servicey silly reason, and it kind of plays within that and gives me that kind of tight little B-movie story basically that I want, a simplistic tale of Hulk destroying Asgard and Thor trying to stop him. And this really works. The Hulk vs. Thor fights don't disappoint, and when Hulk and Thor aren't versing each other, it didn't really bother me as much as it did in the next one, because there was enough Hulk action, there was enough Thor action that I was happy with it overall, and there was an awesome Hulk and Thor fight. It was kind of the epic battle that you've always wanted, and I can't think of another thing that captured the Hulk vs. Thor fight better than this short. Now, the Hulk vs. Wolverine thing is really more of a Wolverine short. It's kind of like the main thing that connects these two is people trying to stop the Hulk, which works in kind of an anthology kind of thing, although this isn't an anthology, or maybe in 2008 when there was a DVD bubble, this felt like what a modern anthology thing could be, which is like an interesting idea. But Hulk vs. Wolverine is mainly about the Weapon X stuff and has some stuff of Wolverine vs. Hulk, referencing the iconic and very famous first appearance of Wolverine in a Hulk story. You have that, and that stuff's great, but then it goes into the Weapon X thing, which is very respectful, and it does kind of bring up an almost kind of interesting theory, or sort of a fan theory, that the Doctor who started Weapon X would want the Hulk and what he could do with the Hulk, and it's actually sort of disturbing. It made me think like, wow, that's like really terrifying within the Marvel universe, and kind of an interesting idea, and why wouldn't he be interested in that? I like the premise of that, but then going through the Weapon X stuff, I understand predominantly one of the biggest things about Wolverine is his backstory and his haunted past and so forth, but like we're going so into that I kind of was a little surprised. I thought it did it more respectfully than I've ever seen anyone do Weapon X. But then, you know, a lot of this is fan service and showing people characters that they don't normally get to see on the big screen. And a lot of the Asgard stuff, I guess when they were making this, they weren't sure if a Thor movie was gonna happen. Obviously that did. But it doesn't really bother me as much as it does in this one, where you have Sabretooth, Lady Deathstrike, Omega Red, and Deadpool. And Deadpool, apparently, they really, really wanted to be in this because he was so popular at the time, which kind of makes you go, well, why didn't you just make, like, Hulk vs. Deadpool? Or make a Deadpool animated movie? Did they do that? But Deadpool, who's voiced by Nolan North, I think did an incredible job. Apparently, he improvised a lot of his lines. He does kind of play the kind of, like, Bugs Bunny type character that Deadpool is supposed to be, and he does it excellently well. He's probably, like, the best of like the kind of grouped together people of Sabretooth, Lady Deathstrike, and Omega Red. He's probably the only character I'd really want to see in anything. He even gets a post-credit kind of sequence that's reminiscent of the X-Men Origins Wolverine thing, but actually is a lot better. Sort of reminds me what the MCU post-credit sequences would become, but back in 2008, I believe, when this was released. And Hulk is actually funnier in this. In Hulk vs. Thor, he was separated from Bruce Banner, he was taken over, so you didn't get a lot of personality. But in Hulk vs. Wolverine, you get this whole thing where he makes like some cool Hulk jokes, like Hulk vs. Talking Man, Hulk vs. Ugly Lady, Hulk vs. Short Man, I think, or Short Guy or something. But then he goes Hulk vs. Claw People, which was really funny because you're like, yeah, all these guys have like weird claws and stuff. This is still good. I just kind of was like, at a certain point, we're going through so much Weapon X stuff, and they have an X-23 cameo in this. As we're going through the whole Weapon X thing, I was kind of like, isn't this Hulk vs. Wolverine? Like, is that still, am I still watching that? Like, Hulk was like so gone. In Hulk vs. Thor, all the actions are either about fighting the Hulk or talking about how they're going to get the Hulk back or bring Bruce Banner back from hell, and like all these various things that involve the Hulk. And in this, it's like, oh, we're doing all this stuff with Wolverine. Oh, and by the way, Hulk's here too, I guess. I like the idea that Hulk's just sort of involved in an anthology way, but it did sort of annoy me when I see like a really great Hulk versus someone thing, and I sort of wouldn't have minded him doing that with Wolverine. And I got it to a certain regard, but it felt like it kind of dropped why I bought the DVD set in the first place, which was to see Hulk fight people and not, you know, the Hulk versus Wolverine's backstory. This is a really cool idea. It kind of shows you the ideas that they were planning with DVD before the bubble burst or the economy fell apart, basically. I know DC released DVDs of some of their shorts, which were a lot shorter than this, and a similar idea, and you could probably watch those in any order you wanted, although this doesn't have a play all function, or at least if it did, I didn't find it, and I don't have that DC DVD, so I don't know, maybe that one did. Obviously, one of those shorts eventually inspired Teen Titans Go. This inspired nothing other than me to buy a cool DVD with that funny case and everything like that. It's like, what? Anyway, I think as fan service and a lot of these direct to DVD movies, the one thing I like about them is it helps you get your inner fanboy or nerd kind of boner out, basically, by kind of just like doing literally the thing that most audiences you need to explain and get through. And although, you know, nerd culture and mainstream culture are so closer together, things like this are still like a lot of fun. It's kind of like under the guise of what we have to do in a comic book movie and blah 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 blah. This is just like, fuck that, let's just make a good story. And I think the Hulk vs. Thor thing kind of actually passes through that, and like some of these things can just be like fun fan servicey stuff that is just fine for me to tell friends who like comic books and go, you should really check that out, it's like a fun evening. But Hulk vs. Thor kind of is built well enough to be a little further than that. I'm not gonna act like it's my favorite film of 2008 or something, but I think is like just a fun, like action-y movie. I think it does an amazingly good job. I really love seeing Hulk vs. Thor. It's like actually like when I picked up this DVD to review it, because I've had this for a couple years, thankfully, because I had to save it. The Hulk vs. Thor thing is the one that holds up best in my memory. Hulk vs. Wolverine, although it's listed first, and I'm sure it was a major selling point, it just doesn't hold up as well. You know, I've seen the Weapon X thing done a million times, and in certain ways, I guess it ruins their own fan service because they do try to explain things, which is like, who is buying this or watching this who doesn't know all this crap already? And especially like Weapon X, which has been done to fucking death at this point. So it's like, why are we even going through this? I just want to see Hulk and Wolverine fight, which, by the way, is a really unique thing, because I don't think that would ever happen again. Whereas Hulk vs. Thor is really well constructed around having a Hulk vs. Thor fight, which we've seen a ton of times after that. So in terms of how well this is aged, I think in terms of what it was doing, it aged worse, because really Hulk vs. Wolverine is something we wouldn't get to see on the big screen, and you probably should have spent a little more time with it. If they had both been structured the same, maybe I'd be okay with it. I kind of respect that they kind of tried to do two very different shorts, really, and even the animation's a little different, and the only thing having together is like writers and the voice of Hulk and Bruce Banner. And I like that they're kind of very different shorts, presumably taking place at different timelines. Not that there doesn't seem to be animation continuity, I guess. That seems to be, they just kind of make these one-offs and are okay with it because comic fans can deal with that. And I think Hulk versus plays really well within that. Plays probably better than a lot of things because it's just there to have fun and give you a kind of fun evening. And it does so successfully. I've kind of looked back on this little DVD fondly. I wish they could have done more things with this, or even you could do it with streaming. Just have, hey, here's a bunch of shorts of like this character fighting this person or this, and they could do more with this. It's kind of a cool idea. It's sort of like the Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner things, or spy versus spy, but why not do it with superheroes and have a cool story around it? Certainly they could have had a lot more fun with the animation in that regard, and it could have been cool. But as of Hulk versus, I think it's a really fun little combination thing. I would recommend watching the DVD over the streaming thing, which was just them back to back. I think is a little lame, but if that's the only way you can see it, then you know, I guess that's the only way you can see it. But I still like the kind of promise of this, and kind of an idea with DVD that never really got to mature much past this idea. And it was actually kind of the second most successful of the Marvel direct-to-DVD kind of feature things. So clearly I think it could have worked beyond that. But I think Hulkverse has always been one of my more favorite comic book direct-to-DVD things. More of a personal favorite than like, you know, great storytelling or something like that. Although I will say the storytelling is probably what made me like it a little bit more, because it understood how to use that storytelling, especially with the Hulk vs. Thor thing, to give me an awesome excuse to watch Hulk punch a bunch of crap, and that was always really cool. So if you have seen Hulkverse and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.